Greetings, beautiful beings. Welcome to another video. We are here and taking all the beautiful energy of nature in, and we're preparing today for this incredible eclipse, a lunar eclipse happening on July 4th, in some parts of the world July 5th in the morning or day. So this will be visible in all of North and Central America, and we over here may be more strongly affected by it. And it's also interesting that this eclipse is coming on that sort of foundational time of the United States. So there may be some energy added into the mix there. We can already say, without a doubt, that the US is going through some of the biggest transformation ever possible, and that's a whole subject in itself. Maybe we'll talk about that, but first, let's look at the entire chart. So I'm going to pop the chart up on the screen, and we have Capricorn, Cancer, and Sun in Cancer, Moon in Capricorn, Moon with all of these other planets in the Capricorn. This is, in many senses, the axis of caring and nurture. The Cancer side being the more matriarchal energy, the Capricorn being the more paternal, patriarchal energy. And so it's this balance back and forth between how much we Capricorn focus on our goals, march forward like a goat, climb to the top of the mountain, and Cancer, we ride with the waves, we don't walk forward necessarily, we sidestep like a crab, and we, in a way, protect ourselves, not out of fear, but out of care and nurture. So we have those energies going on, and the Sun is now directly conjunct our friend and asteroid, Vesta. So Vesta is, I see it as how we literally invest in ourselves, invest in those things that matter most to us. And she's this kind of goddess of the inner fire of purification. It's a lot about our spiritual commitment. And when we commit spiritually and we ignite this flame of divine love within us, it often just propels us forward. So together in Cancer, it's really about making our commitment to really nurturing and caring for ourselves and for each other. And as we do that, there should be this really powerful ignition that lights up and brings spark back to our life. Though we have an opposition here, so there's restriction to this. We have a big opposition. First of all, the moon. The moon's in Capricorn. And as Cancer is the ruling sign of the moon is domicile in Cancer, but it is in its fall in Capricorn. So already on its own, a Capricorn moon or a Capricorn full moon is a bit of a challenging experience, because the moon is all about getting in touch with our emotions, tenderness, caring, but Capricorn's all about getting stuff done. So our moon, our emotional body will definitely feel a bit of intensity, and there's so many themes that are coming to the surface. So the moon in Capricorn is conjunct Pallas Athena and Jupiter. If you use an orb of 10 degrees, which I like to use, and Jupiter is also conjunct Pluto and Saturn, and they're all retrograde. In fact, even the little asteroids there are all retrograde as well. There's Quaoar, Pholus, and Ixion a little bit before the moon, not necessarily conjunct. They're retrograde, but it's interesting that they're all together, and everything here that can be moving retrograde is moving retrograde. So it's a big review, and at a collective level, this is inviting us to look at all of these systems of business, entrepreneurship, less so that one, business and companies, corporations, financial institutions, and everything of this nature. This is all very Capricorn stuff. And we're seeing that through this COVID, it is being re-examined and reevaluated and overhauled. And this process is going to continue through the year. And this moon invites us in a very particular way to examine how we are going to choose to engage with this process. This could be a loss for some, or for many it is a total celebration, because we've been hoping for the revolution for many years now, and the revolution's really happening. Some people have been hoping for the revolution, but not expecting it to look this way. And just goes to show you, sometimes you just gotta allow the revolution to be what it is. So, very big planets there. And Jupiter and Pluto are in the strongest conjunct. And Pluto is all about death and transformation. Jupiter is all about expansion, growth. It's also about belief, in a sense, religion as well. It's about these big ideas that propel us in a direction and initiate our growth. So we're seeing this sort of death of what we have believed, perhaps. We're seeing a death of the way that the collective has invested ourselves in certain ways of living and being. And also conjunct Pallas Athena, call it either. This is all about our intellect, our rational understanding, our depth of study into something. So Pallas Athena with Jupiter, and they're directly conjunct at this time, is a really big invitation to examine your beliefs. Do you just believe something for its sake, or do you believe something because you have thoroughly evaluated it and weighed intuition and logic, and most importantly, how this feels in your heart and how this feels in terms of seeing it from every other person on this planet's perspective. When you thoroughly do that, then you can decide, do I keep this belief or do I discard it? So there is definitely some deep examination of beliefs, and in Capricorn it's all about these beliefs related to our work, our worth, our development, our path. All of this energy can bring about a sort of restriction, because, Saturn is the ruling planet of Capricorn, and Saturn is in Capricorn, so we may feel restricted, held back. We are feeling that in the lockdown, though what the lockdown is teaching, certainly what the lockdown is teaching me, is that, before, especially being involved in many communities, there was a sense that, being in community is what nurtures me and feeds me, and then the collective mindset of the community is often backing that up with this great enthusiasm for, we're all coming together, we're all celebrating, we're all doing the thing. And what I'm coming to experience through all of these times is that actually the deepest nurture happens for me in deep one-to-one connections, more intimate personal connections that allow everything to come through, rather than these big sort of celebratory energies, which we're rightfully missing. Though when we are deprived of something, when something has been a part of our lives and we miss it for a certain amount of time, when we come back to it, we're able to appreciate it in a much deeper, more profound sense. And I do not believe for a second that lockdown and totalitarian control is going to last forever. It may have resurgences in the next years, and we may experience greater pandemic experiences, though this is all temporary. And we have to use this time and work with the limitations within it to develop the skills that we have. If we lived in an unlimited universe, we could create anything we wanted. This is true to many extents, though our physical world has limitations, and you can argue and fight with the limitations, but that's only going to make them stronger and more intense and more lasting and just not pleasant. Though limitations can also be used as something that you work with in order to develop yourself. Without the limitations, you wouldn't necessarily take a certain path. And that path that you take, what you do with the constraints that you're in, is what strengthens you, is what develops you, is what teaches you to be adaptable. So accepting those limitations is key. Okay, so that's about the Capricorn stuff. And we have a cardinal T-square with the moon and the sun and Jupiter and Chiron and Black Moon Lilith. So Chiron, Black Moon Lilith, and Mars are in Aries. I think I said the wrong planet the first time, but they're in Aries. And these three planets, and Black Moon Lilith is not a planet, it's an invisible magical point created by the moon. And they are kind of intense. And Mars, first of all, is in its ruling sign in Aries. And Aries is this pure masculine principle. It's like getting it done, moving, initiating, penetrating, intensity. And Aries is classic for also stirring things up. Aries has a big temper, and Aries is all about getting its way. It's all about the self, me. So there's still a lot of distorted Aries energy. You can see Aries and Capricorn are very much these signs that have a lot to do with the masculine archetypes in our world. Capricorn being this paternal, paternal, in its distortion patriarchal, ruling old dude who makes the rules, and Aries being the rough, heavy man who just pushes through and gets his way and gets in there. So actually we're seeing in this sort of fractal, maybe not everyone watching this video is aware of this sort of fractal of the spiritual community that I'm a bit connected with. There's this Nako bear who's being charged for sexual assault. So there is something about this time that is pushing those old masculine energies to be seen. Because, okay, we see the moon, the sun, in the maternal, motherly energy of Cancer, who's just sick of it. She's sick of this stupid male assholes causing problems, oppressing others, and getting in the way of natural growth and development. So this stuff may be coming up, and it may be coming up in ways that we don't really like. Mars is going to be in Aries for many months, and Mars is going to be going over Chiron several times. So this is almost the initiation. And we have to be very careful because this is setting the stage for our entire Mars retrograde thing, which I think ends in October. Don't quote me on that, and we need to look that up. But it's like 3 or 4 months. And this is going to be a time when emotions are charged, when we are challenged in the way that we move forward and initiate our will. And Mars retrograde is like getting stuck in our will, getting stuck in our drive. In Aries, it may express some of these deep qualities of the stubbornness that Aries holds. So preparing ourselves for that now is key. Chiron in Aries. Chiron was in Aries during the initial part of the counterculture movement. Through that, the hippie movement, and saying we don't want this, we don't stand for this anymore, and we want free love, free self-expression. So there's a new wave of free self-expression, and this free self-expression is greatly challenging the old patriarchal system. So this part of it is good. So we want to use this ego drive to stand for the collective. We want to use this ego drive that's very highlighted now to, yes, unhinge the old and liberate ourselves without causing more harm. So there's a lot of ways of standing up for oneself that we're seeing, that it's creating this kind of quantum experience that the more you resist something, the more it persists. The more you push against something, the more it pushes back at you. And this isn't the way that we're going to solve our problems in the world. And peaceful protesting is amazing. Riots are not. There is some evidence suggesting that the riot aspect of this is incited and incentivized. So there's a knowing on a higher level that, oh, if we get them to fight against us, that's going to give us more power to push them back down. So it's sublimating this Aries energy to stand for what you are for without fighting what you are against. Yes, using this, Pallas Athena mind with the Jupiter, or orienting your belief systems and your thinking to help dismantle that. Though when you fight somebody, or when you make it personal, make this collective issue so personal that it offends the ego, we stifle progress. And one way or another, this is something that we're going to learn as we move through this time, that it is this beautiful Cancer energy of just compassion, openness, nurture, that is going to help break through a lot of stagnation, especially right now in this moment. Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith also with the Mars and Chiron. And Black Moon Lilith is this sort of instinctual, feminine, creative wildness within us. And in Aries, she's especially wild. She really wants to get her needs met. She really wants to have her way. And so there may be this wounding around our selfhood that's coming up with Chiron, and it's expanded into areas of how what is considered taboo has been shut down in us, how it's been oppressed, how our sexuality and our instinct and our intuition has been oppressed. So there's a reclamation of that happening now. There's a way that within us, everyone is stepping into an embodiment of their own inner wild feminine, and that's to be celebrated. And that's also something that comes up against, again, all of this heavy Capricorn energy we're experiencing together, retrograde Capricorn. And we want to use and channel this wild energy to stand up to these oppressive systems, but again, not push them and resist them in a way that they push back at us and continue to oppress us. So it's really finding your way out of the matrix, finding your way out of those ways that the archons and the negative energies and the energy parasites have their hold on you. And sometimes it's better to walk away and find your tribe, find your family, Cancer, that supports you, rather than trying to convince those who are acting out of alignment with source and free will and unconditional love to change. We set an example for them to change by being in our own heart, being liberated within ourselves. Okay. We have Uranus Uranus, again, hasn't really moved that far. The aspect of Uranus here in 10 degrees of Taurus is a sextile to the Sun and to Vesta and to Mercury. We didn't talk about Mercury, but Mercury is there, and it's also a trine to the Moon and to all of our friends up there in Capricorn. So Uranus, when we see this hard aspect and then we see something sextiling and trining it, Uranus is our friend at this point. Uranus is not yet retrograde, but Uranus is in its shadow phase. So the lessons we're learning with Uranus now are something that we're going to have to review at a later point. But this sextile, this trine, these beautiful shiny blue lines that you'll see in that picture, help us to support and balance this energy out. Uranus is about innovation. What we're innovating with Taurus is the earth itself, the structures of the earth. Taurus, again, traditional ruler Venus, is the value system that we have, the way that we relate to finances and money, also pleasure and beauty. So this influence is suggesting that innovating the ways that we relate with values and money is going to really help us get through this challenge. Innovating the ways that we artistically express ourselves is also going to help us get through this. So value artists now use art itself as this powerful, innovative force that propels us forward in our evolution. Okay, Venus, we love Venus. Venus is moving through its post-shadow phase, coming out of Venus retrograde. So we've had several weeks of reevaluating how we relate to love, beauty, pleasure, values, money, all those things, relationship challenges, or seeing the ways that we've been blocked in relationships. And now we're starting to move again through that. Venus in 7 degrees Gemini. What is that showing me there? If you use an orb of 10 degrees, Venus is still trining Saturn. And so the lessons that we've learned from this Venus retrograde in Gemini is all about the mind, the intellect, sorting through different possibilities, opening ourselves to many perspectives. If we've keeping an open mind now, that's going to help us move through these restricted phases. And also, Venus is taking us to Mercury. It's in a semi-sextile to Mercury, and there's not a big orb for this. So it's also not a major aspect at all. It's when signs are in the same degree of the next sign. So semi-sextile just adds a little boost, saying that these planets are working together. Our values and our love and our relating is working with our mind and our thinking and our logic, our reason. Mercury is also about magic, because when we orient our words and our thinking in the right way, we open up our power to create. Mercury was there from the beginning. I didn't mention it, with the Sun and Vesta. So Mercury is allowing our mind to get on board with this whole train of tapping into love, nurture, investing ourselves in that which brings out our greatest sensitivity and caring. So Mercury retrograde is adding a more contemplative, slower aspect to our thinking in the ways that we're doing this. So honoring Mercury is so beautiful, and allowing ourselves to be very contemplative. How do we really relate to each other? How do we care for each other? What does family mean to us? These are themes that Mercury is bringing up at this time. And North Node is not quite in the picture here, but the North Node in Gemini is again this sort of shift into evolving through examining our beliefs, working with the mind, working with our hands as well. This mental energy is expanding, and Gemini is in a way a more objective energy. Gemini likes to see things through every perspective to get to a more objective truth. So again, the South Node in Sagittarius is reflecting You know, we may have put too much emphasis on our beliefs and our great, ambitious, rebel self, and now it's time to really think deeply, critically. What other planets are existing? Juno, about relationships, is trine to Venus. You don't see that because if I put that aspect on, there'd be too many lines. But Juno's over there in Libra, and Juno in Libra is quite happy, I would say. I would say that those two things have a lot in common with each other. So that may add to a very good way of relating to each other, expanding relationships. Neptune is conjunct Ceres. Ceres is the goddess of the home and hearth. Ceres is, in a way, relates Ceres a bit to Cancer, like how we care and nurture and get grounded in our space. And Neptune is making a sextile to all of those Capricorn planets, and Neptune's making a trine to the Sun and to Vesta. So Neptune, like Uranus, is another happy force that can be supporting us in working with the challenge of these energies. So Neptune in Pisces is opening ourselves up spiritually, having spiritual expansion, and connecting to the ecstasy of being, connecting to the great universal love. And the shadow of this is getting lost in illusion, deception. I've talked about this in other videos. So making sure that we are not living in fantasies and keeping ourselves grounded. And Uranus and Taurus is all about grounding, but the kind of grounding there is a bit of a shaky, volcanic, earthquakey, like, whoo, the earth is shaking beneath me and I have to learn how to be here despite it. Kind of cool. So I think that's all in this traditional astrology that is jumping up and jumping out to me. And part of fortune in Virgo, it's not a very often talked about part, but this is sort of another invisible point that's created by the conjunction between different planets, and that's in Virgo. And we like it in Virgo. That is creating, in a sense, this grand trine with a 10-degree orb of the earth elements. So we can use that invisible point to say that if we can get in our Virgo self, our analytical, focused, practical orientation, we can then deal with the challenge of all of this Capricorn energy a bit easier. For a minute, I couldn't tell if it was recording. The gene keys aspects here. So gene keys are human design gates, are calculated through specific points in the astrological wheel that connect with the I Ching. And I'm just looking at the sun and the moon. The sun is in gene key 39. The city, or the magical psychic power of this, is liberation. The gift is dynamism. The shadow is provocation. The programming partner, the moon, is in 38. Honor, city. Preservation, gift. Struggle, the shadow. So emotionally, this can feel like struggle is when we're pushing very strongly against something. Struggle is when we feel like we have to fight for our way, when it's kind of a drudgery. Moving to preservation is to, instead of seeing what isn't working and what isn't moving us forward, how do we maintain and hold on to equanimity within ourselves? How do we see within ourselves the gifts and the beauty that we do have and work to preserve them? And when we really honor and value everything we're holding and we maintain it, preservation, this, is like, interestingly, I associate preservation more with this crab aspect, the Cancer, but it is the moon here, so this is relating to a Capricorn degree. So when we honor fully what we're having, the beauty in us, and preserve it, we come to honor ourselves, we come to honor all that is, we come to see the great beauty that's alive in everything and maintain it. And our moon, our emotional body, is very much in alignment with this now. The sun, liberation, dynamism, provocation. The sun is calling us to break free, provocation. So when we provoke each other, when we press that trigger button, our intention within that is to create change. Though when we want to create change through looking at the problem rather than the solution, it will always perpetuate the problem. But when we instead introduce the solution first, and we still address the problem, but we don't do so in a way that perpetuates the problem. So there's a lot of buzz on the social media things. What's that? Social media. Oh God. It rules our lives. And there's a lot of buzz that is just talking about issues. I don't like you're doing this. I don't like you're doing that. This is oppressed. That's oppressed. You're not understanding me. And regardless of your stance and position, when you focus on the problem, you're only going to provoke others. Though when you focus on the solution, you are still dynamically introducing that focus that can give change and bring change to the whole thing. And until you bring yourself to focus on that true solution, you'll never be liberated. Until you allow yourself to see, okay, this is the great gift that is propelling us forward to evolve, then you will still, in many senses, remain provoked and provoking each other. So liberate yourselves. It's the best time to do so. Whew, okay. I think that really sums up this eclipse time. And if you can take a moment to watch the eclipse, watch the red moon, it can inspire you and can connect with its energy. I invite you to use this time as a powerful time to release and to manifest. Which ways can you release your resistance? Which ways can you release the ways that you provoke others and you are provoked? Which ways can you plant the seeds of dynamic change and evolution? This is one of the times of greatest change on the planet. We're preparing to go through a whole death and rebirth cycle. And as we do this, there's so much potential. Turn inside and ask yourself, what world do I want to see? And what part do I want to play in it? And when you can have that solution-oriented focus, that you're seeing where you're going in the world and seeing what matters most to you in your life and in the collective, then great change will come. Remember, Chiron and Aries, we're all working through these wounds of the self for some time. And this middle point between the energies is super key. So we see Chiron here. This eclipse should be bringing our focus to Chiron and noticing where there is wounding around our selfhood. And when you create an image of yourself with this eclipse of who is the self that I want to be? If I had no wounds and I had no self-image issues and I had no issues allowing my impulsive instinctual, not impulsive, my instinctual self to express through me, who would I be? Can you imagine a version of yourself that's like that? If you can, would they act, think, and feel differently? And how? Imagine yourself becoming that part of yourself that is beyond these sort of restrictive beliefs about the self that limit your self-expression, that limit your way of seeing yourself as a complete and perfect part of creation. And also, when we really look at that chart, this is the only fire we've got. That we've got a couple fire. Well, Aries rather is the only fire sign that we've got right now. And so fire in general has a lot to do with self. You would say that Leo is how is myself perceived and presented. Sagittarius, how is myself oriented in belief? How do I express and relate and share? And in many senses transform. Aries is how do I do? How do I operate? How do I initiate my will? And liberating this now is key. Liberate yourself from any restrictive ways that you have held back who you are, how you see yourself, how you relate, how you express what you really want and what you really need. Because again, if you have everything you need, then you will automatically thrive. And we will have to learn, we will be forced to learn in this time that the value systems of our world that we've come to perceive things through is very distorted. And we've come to believe we need a lot more than we actually need. So let it go. If you find yourself stuck on something, really question, do I actually need this thing? Or is this something that I've been trained to believe is important, but is actually not that important? So open yourself, free yourself. I guess I can also say something of the, this is happening on the birth initiation point of the planet, of the country itself. Got distracted for a moment. The United States. And this country is also going through its Pluto return quite soon. So it's a big reevaluation point. Hi, friends. Hi. And it will be a very telling year for where the future of this country is going. So we're seeing that through very corrupt leadership and very confused people. People very much operating from this I am independent, this is my way mindset that is so common in this country. And include the future well-being of this country in your meditation, we could say, as it's going to lead to many great transformations. This eclipse, again, is with us for 6 months. And out of all of the eclipses, this is the one that goes over the United States. So how synchronistic is that? And how much of a sign of the transformation that is needed is that? Okay, I think that is enough for this video. Thanks for tuning in. I do astrology readings. If you want me to look at your chart and see what's going on for you in general through your life, or as well in relation to any of the current planetary happenings, I'd be very happy to do that. And just give me a shout. Like, subscribe, share, all of the things. Thanks so much. It helps the channel growing. If you like these videos, let people know of what you're learning and that there's some magic to tune into here. Alright, so much love to you and have the best day ever. Ciao for now.